Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all here. I am working real hard because my mama said if you ain't got nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all. And so there's all these bad things I want to say that I'm going to be working around because there's plenty good things to say. I mean, this week I had to kind of check myself. I work with a volunteer organization and we were preparing a home for a family, and there were only two bedrooms, and there are three children and an adult. And I was like, where everybody gonna sleep? Um, and it was a reminder that sometimes wealth privilege looks different than we think it does. Like, I'm not hungry. I'm not worried about being hungry. It don't really matter what happened to these food prices. I'm probably gonna be able to access somebody who grows some food. um, I got way more space than one person would ever seem to need. And sometimes we can forget that these good things are happening. And part of the reason for that is because the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us over 50 years ago that the way we think about making money in this country is wholly problematic. We are not just capitalist, we are greedy capitalist. We cannot, we have been convinced that we work and we grind. And I want y'all to look up the word grind and what that means, that we do that just for what we need. But then what we need starts to mean multiple houses. It starts to mean whenever vacationing, whenever we want from someplace all around the globe. We need a yacht. We need a private jet. We need perfume for our dogs. We need clothes for our dogs. We need garages and houses for our cars, even. And listen, I am never going to tell you to not try to make some money. But when we are willing to make money at all cost, it gets us in this position where we are willing to put people in jail who didn't do anything to make money. It puts us in this position where we're willing to charge people exorbitant amounts of things that we know don't cost or not valued at that amount. It makes us say things like, I don't really want to concern myself with a man who got choked to death on a subway train because he had been arrested 40 times. Because you see, if we had a decent understanding of what it was like to be impoverished in this country, we would know that a single $400 emergency, a single one, would render most people in this country homeless. They don't have anybody they can lean on. And so when you're thinking about that, then when you're homeless and you got to go to the bathroom, where you going to go? You see, because of the way I'm afforded the ability to dress, I can walk in anywhere and use the restroom if I want to. And that whole little rule they got about it's just for patrons. I've seen that sign before. And those are just rules that we use to keep people out that we want to keep out. And so when you go to the bathroom outside, now you just committed a crime. When you're sleeping outside, now you're committing a crime. And interestingly enough, let's say I decided that I was going to restrain someone on a subway car because I felt that they were dangerous. Wonderful. The point at which they pass out, why am I still choking them? You see, if you just go back 3 years and look at when we were focused, when we were at home, when we were reminding ourselves of our values, when we were looking at all these clothes and realizing we didn't have nowhere to wear them, when we couldn't get to the beauty salon, we were forced to kind of reckon with ourselves. And when we're forced to reckon with ourselves, guess what? We realize we don't need this stuff. And when we realize we don't need this stuff, we can look at a person being choked to death, i.e., George Floyd, and say, this is wrong. But now you just fast forward 3 years later. Now you got the likes of Dr. Phil saying reparations would ruin this country. I did his Financial Peace University. I think it's a fantastic way to get yourself out of a precarious financial situation if you're in one. You know, I wrote in the Holy Educated Motherfucker about being down to $13.74. If you're interested in how, please read the book. But how do you get rid of the type of debt that I had found myself in and be able to get to and from work without the likes of a financial peace university? You know what? Dave Ramsey kind of know what he's talking about related to that. But I have been following this man for years and he got lots of racist ideas. Lots of racist ideas. And the fact that we cannot get people to look at their racist ideas because they have incessant amounts of wealth is part of our problem. You see, I had coffee with a friend this week who said, Nicole, we're not going to fix this because if it were us, we would probably do the same thing. And I couldn't argue against it because you can't swim in this water and not get wet. American capitalism has taught us that the more we have, the more we want. The more we have, it doesn't reduce our amount of fear. It makes our fear go up because now we're scared to lose it. What happens if you lose your job, you lose your wealth? Then you just got to sit there with yourself and no money, and you can't make people respect you because of the money you have, or the fame you have, or the notoriety you have. What's left but you? You got to sit there and deal with you. And nothing broke my heart more than to see an educator this week after Educators Week, responsible for young minds of all colors every day, furious that she would have to learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, one of my primary mentors said to me, Nicole, you know, you're better than this diversity, equity, and inclusion thing. You know what people saying it to me? They certainly saying it to white folk. And if by chance you associate difference and fairness and creating a sense of belonging with something negative that you are being forced to deal with, and you are shaping young minds. And you know, I know exactly because of this empathy journey I'm on, I know exactly what she means. I have listened to it throughout this nation. We just need to agree to disagree because this is woke culture. We agree to disagree on pizza toppings. We agree to disagree on types of books we like to read. We agree to disagree on things like what car do you appreciate? We don't agree to disagree on the facts of racial terror in this country. And for me, these people who think that leadership is this thing over here, look, I got leadership book after leadership book after leadership book all over here on this side. Don't none of them, not one, mention creating an inclusive culture except for a couple in the education category. All of these books over here are about race equity. All of them are about inclusivity, and only a couple of them tell you about how to be a good leader. These ones here in the middle, about how to coach. I got a whole shelf over here about the different Abrahamic religions, about social emotional learning and checking in, about uplifting the spirit. Not one of them mentions leadership. None of them mentions race equity. We are all humans. We all are led by somebody. And it is not good leadership if you can't get the best out of everybody on your team. And you ain't going to care about that unless you have empathy. You see, I care too much these days. I was so irritable yesterday. I said, I can't talk to nobody. Don't go nowhere. Because how can you make sense of people shooting folks who are coming to knock on your door? How can you make sense of choking people in the streets? How can you make sense of $500,000 vehicles and firing people because they didn't get to the championship? How can you make sense of it? The only way you can make sense of it is if you can just don't have the ability to say, what would I want to happen if it were me? It's a PR machine telling us that this idea to stay focused, to stay woke, is a left wing ideology, leftist politics. It's a local teacher in a school district here in my city. My city has put together a commission on the effectiveness of reparations. There's a couple people on that list. I ain't never heard them talk about race equity one time in my life. Curious to see what they gonna find. But if, like Dr. Phil, they can afford financially to be completely ignorant on this topic, I can guarantee you, we ain't gonna see no difference. Because the reason we are able to fall for it, Sylvia, the reason we're able to fall for it, because capitalism is wrapped around our necks. And I ain't talking about nobody. I'm talking about me too. Every time I buy a pair of shoes and I got way too many. What is that? Every time I think I need just one more thing, what is that? Materialism, greed. There is enough food for everyone. How is it that people are going hungry? And when people go hungry, sometimes they lose their minds. And when people lose their minds, sometimes they on the street. And when people on the street, that gives us zero right to murder them in broad daylight. And my hope is that if you are standing there when these things happen, that you would do something different. That you would do something different. There's a video circulating that says racism in 30 seconds. And there's a little black girl. She's got on a white shirt and black pants, and she's standing alone, look like she's 4 years old. And everybody's just walking all around her. Nobody's paying any attention to her at all. They do the same experiment with a little white girl, looks like she's about 4 years old. She got on a white top and black pants. Immediately, person after person after person comes to see if she is okay. Now, I would tell you that ain't racism. That's prejudice. That's bigotry. That's unconscious bias at play. You know what racism is? The top 10 wealthiest U.S. Americans are 100% white. One of them gave 99% of his wealth away, and he's still in the top 10. 99% of the presidents and vice presidents in this country, 100% white. Out of the 400 Ingrams 40 under 40 over the last 10 years here in Kansas City, less than, I don't know, what was it? Less than 40 of them. It was like 20 of them were black or brown, meaning 99.5% of them white. The people who decide which TV shows we watch, the people who decide what news gets covered, the people who decide what the laws are going to be, white. The people who determine who we're going to hire in our superintendencies, white. 80% of our, or no, it's 90+% of our superintendents of the 15,000 urban school districts in this country, white. 83% of the teachers who are educating our children, white. And there ain't one problem with being white except this. Too many people have the ability to opt out. You see, I don't have to worry myself about all these other things where I do have privilege. I don't have to worry about poor people. I don't have to worry about people who can't learn. I don't have to worry about people with mental conditions. I don't have to worry about people with special needs. I don't have to worry about people with pre-existing conditions, which is nothing more than medical history. I don't have to worry about, being too heavy. I don't even have to worry about colorism. I happen to be the type of black that's right in the middle. I'm not too dark, I'm not too light. Um, am I was born here. I speak native English. I don't have to worry about a whole bunch of stuff. And if I choose to opt out when it does not impact me, I'm not living in accordance with my values. It is my value. It is my value. And I think all of us need to spend time thinking about what are our values and ask ourselves, are we living in accordance with them every day? Because you can't tell me you value inclusion, and then the moment you get to exclude somebody, you do. You can't tell me you value friendship, and the moment you get an opportunity to talk negatively about somebody back, you do. You can't tell me you value trust and you a lie and a cheat. You can't tell me you value charity and you stingy with your wealth. Don't tell me. Can't tell me. Can't tell me that. We need an empathy revolution in this country. And I'm starting with myself. And with myself, it started with, what do you value? And wealth is not in my top 10. So if it's in yours, fine. But just know that racism, bigotry, and hatred, and putting these racist people in front of our children and choking the life out of folks who have human dignity inside, that's costing you money, sugar. Don't know? Ask Lance Lochner, the economist. Every single dropout in the United States of America impacts our GDP by 1%. You think your wealth is going to protect you. Where you think people gonna go when they can't eat? When they being consistently killed in the street? I don't know. I don't know. But I'll tell you this. I'm trying real hard to launch this empathy revolution. I don't even know how to do it. I believe that many of you know much better than I. And I hope you'll join me. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got work to do.